Hello and welcome to my channel, Iris Rainbow. So I am going to put out this video. I've actually been trying to get out a video about this topic for the last few weeks, and it's like every time that I've sat down to film this video and talk about this specific subject, I've had a lot of interruptions. So that's kind of what prompted me to make the last video, where I was clearing out bullshit and enemies and haters and bullies, because I felt like there was some spiritual interference in the situation. And you know, this video is going to be about the spiritual significance of adversaries, enemies, haters, bullies. And the reason I'm making this video is because, you know, I am a queer, neurodivergent person with CPTSD, a lot of trauma, and I've been through a lot. And in the last few years, I've had several situations, generally involving, I would say, people who had, I would say a majority of them were probably narcissistic or highly narcissistic people with very low empathy. And you know, not only did I get entangled into some really toxic situations, which has forced me to do a lot of work around my own toxicity and why I have participated in these types of things or allowed these types of things to happen. And, you know, a lot of it was a lot of mental, emotional manipulation and even spiritual abuse, which is something that doesn't really get talked about. And one of the things that has been revealed to me lately, as I've been thinking back over, you know, a history of toxic relationships, not just partners, but like also friendships, which were very toxic and imbalanced, which is that when we connect with other people, this creates cords. And, you know, when people put basically hooks into our energy field. And when I was younger, you know, there's a lot of things now at this point in my life where I'm looking back on different events that happened in my life and different experiences that I went through, and I'm really seeing the level of manipulation that was going on. And a lot of these things were things that I didn't really realize were happening at the time, but they created, you know, major repercussions in my life. And so these situations over the last couple of years have been very trying and difficult, and have created, you know, they've caused a lot of damage to me personally, and it's really forced me to have to confront my own shadows and my own toxic behavior. So I guess I just want to share a bit of what I'm learning, and, you know, I guess rewind, the spiritual significance of adversaries, enemies, haters, and bullies. And this is not a new thing for, you know, people who are spiritually gifted or spiritually in tune, or just, you know, aka different people who think differently. including like neurodivergence and CPTSD and all of these things, autism, what have you, are people who think differently, people who are outside of the neurotypical heteronormative norms, generally get treated differently. And I think this is true for spiritual people as well, as a general rule, unless we're talking about more kind of mainstream spirituality and things like that. But people who are outside of the box and do things differently are oftentimes the targets for abuse and different kinds of attacks. And the double standards also that exist, as a person who was born into female body and role and socialization. There are a lot of things that I'm not allowed to do according to societal standards that men are allowed to do without any sort of questioning, without any sort of repercussions. But when a person like myself does these things, like standing up for myself, that's one, I'm viewed as a problem. And when a person, a female, feminine person, acts in certain ways, they're labeled as manipulative, crazy, evil, all of the dark feminine traits. But men can literally get away with anything and still have support. And this is especially true when people are gatekeepers, when people have access to clout and resources and whatever things that people can utilize, when people are seen as being worth more by society's standards, they're not held up to the same judgments. And you see this very clearly, like in the judicial system. If you have money and access to resources, you can generally buy your way out of something. So I have, because of the fallout of certain situations in my life, I've dealt with a lot of repercussions of that. And toxic, abusive, narcissist people will put in a lot of time, energy, and effort to make others look bad so that they can deflect any level of accountability or blame, so that they can make the other person look bad and make them sort of the scapegoat for everything, and just write them off as being crazy, toxic, what have you. And men have done this to women and feminine people forever. If you look at the things like witch burnings and going after people for being heretics, like the Crusades, things of that nature, which I don't know, I'm not even gonna get into that, but this is not a new phenomenon, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so to blame intuitive, feminine people for the ills of society, to blame, marginalized, oppressed people for the ills of society, to blame trauma survivors for the ills, it's just wrong. And so, and not to say that I've been like a perfect saint or an angel in any of these scenarios, but I'm definitely held to a different standard than the people who have caused me harm. And this, especially over the last couple of years, 3-4 years, I'm not entirely sure, 5 years, dealing with a couple of situations where these were men who had you know, maybe a position that they felt should not be questioned. And I didn't go along with their demands and meet their demands up to their expectation level, or I challenged their authority, and therefore they had to make an example out of me. So it's nothing new, and it is something that I actually have dealt with even from earlier times in my life, which is just being someone who is different, who has a different communication style and different communication needs, and have dealt with a lot of authoritarian figures growing up, and so I'm not afraid to stand up for myself and others in certain ways. And so, being that I am the person who will say the thing that other people are thinking but are afraid to say, there are people that respect that and value that and are inspired by that, and there are people that hate that and really want to destroy that so that they can keep their positions intact and continue doing what they're doing without having to examine their own behavior and make any changes on their own part. It's just, discard this person and on to the next without any level of reflection or change. And this is something that is very common, and I would say, it's not always men, but I would say it's generally easier for men to get away with treating people this way because we live in a patriarchal society and culture which favors men and generally caters to men. And even a lot of the females in the group, cover for and cater to this kind of behavior. And so victims, survivors, etc. are discarded from safety, from community where they're not safe, really. And we're forced to make our own way, but still having to deal with the fallout of these situations. And potentially, being scarlet lettered or canceled or something like that. And then continuing to watch these same people go out and do the same things and continue to perpetuate the same toxic behaviors. And the only thing you can really do in these situations when you find yourself being entangled with toxic people, it's hard. Like, I've been in these situations, and trauma bonds are hard to break, and it's really hard when people have gotten hooks into you, like when people have gotten in your mind and play mind games. And that's something that is very common with highly narcissistic people, is playing mind games and keeping people in a state of confusion, refusing to create clarity in situations, refusing to create closure in situations, and just always wanting the upper hand and always wanting control. And that's kind of the MO of some of these people, some of the toxic people with high narcissism and low empathy, and people who don't really have the ability to put themselves in another person's shoes or another person's situation. And the situations where I've dealt with these kind of relationships, there were definitely some times when I was able to get myself out early, before much damage was done. But there were times, even within friendships, where I guess, what's the word I'm trying to look like? I got tangled up with certain people, and even though my intuition told me one thing, I guess I went along with it in a lot of ways to keep the peace. It's like, okay, well, these people are friends with my other friends, and that was when I was younger. And now I am still social at times, but I spend a lot more time alone because I realize that I can be easily drained by other people, and especially by people who are you know, not trying and not doing the work, and don't really want to, you know. And it's not for me to judge, but it's for me to recognize that certain environments are not safe or not healthy. So, you know, everyone gets to things in their own time, and we're not here to take on other people's burdens or learn their lessons for them. We're here to do whatever is on our heart to do, whatever is on our path. And really, we don't need to worry. It's difficult because a lot of times, like I mentioned, when you deal with people who are toxic, who are narcissistic, who are bullies, they'll go after you, they'll go after your reputation, they will try to make sure that other people don't want to include you or don't want to deal with you, because they'll go and they'll, you know, tell them their side of the story, and of course leave out everything that they did that could potentially make them look bad. You know, people who are overly concerned with their image and reputation, like, it's good to be concerned with those things to a point, and you make sure that you have a good solid reputation through your character that you display through your actions and through how you treat people. But people who are more toxic and abusive and not trying to work on those things, you know, they will deflect blame and deflect accountability, and so that they can continue to stay the same, you know, so that they don't have to take the accountability. And those are the people that are the most concerned with their image and their reputation, because, you know, I said it in the last video, but it takes a lot of effort to maintain a lie, and whereas the truth is free. So people who spend so much time worrying about image and reputation and trying to, like, cover things up in their lives, those people are doing that because they know that if people understood their actions and the type of person they were and the way that they treated other people, that they might, you know, lose support or lose potentially people in the future to take advantage of and to use for their own, you know, purposes. And so, you know, I realized, like, I feel like sometimes a stranger in this world because, you know, so the social norms and conventions, I just don't understand, and it's gotten to be more so that way. I don't know if it's like social media culture, or if it's particularly where I live, or if I'm just becoming more aware of these things as, you know, a neurodivergent person who identifies as autistic. I'm in a process of unmasking myself to the world and claiming, you know, my space, and standing up for myself against certain things that I am not okay with anymore, and allowing people to treat me in certain ways that I used to. I have changed in certain ways, and I'm not going back to the person that I used to be. And there are some people that don't want you to change, they don't like you to change, you know, for a few reasons. You know, if they've had control over you in the past and you're getting your power back, then they're mad about that. They can't manipulate you or control you anymore. That's a big part of it. So, back to the original point, which is the spiritual significance of adversaries, enemies, haters, and bullies. When we encounter oppositional or adversarial energies, or energies, relationships with people, interactions with people that test our boundaries, that is, it shows us where our weak spots are, you know, where our vulnerabilities are, because people who are looking to take advantage are going to be looking for those weak spots to exploit, whether it's conscious process or an unconscious process. That's what's going on. And so, the wise thing to do, the way to handle it, which can take a very long time to get to this point, and the point that I've recently gotten to. The best way to handle it is to, disengage, and, don't worry too much. There might be gossip, there might be smear campaigns, there might be, people like airing out, everything, exposing you, or thinking they're exposing you. But when you are standing in your truth, and when you are on your path and you're doing your work, like, you're okay. Like, we're all toxic. We all have things in our past that we've done that we're not proud of. We've all made mistakes. We've all at times harmed others. We live in a very toxic, very abusive culture and world, so it's no surprise that these things are happening. But in order to combat that, in order to break down these, social structures that are very stigmatizing, that are very harmful, that are very inaccessible for many people, we have to be coming from a place of honesty and being able to look in the mirror. And some people are unwilling or unable to do that. And it's not our job to do that work for other people. It's really not. And sometimes the best thing you can do is distance yourself and separate yourself, and know that, yes, you might face some collateral damage, but at the same time, just stay consistent with who you are and what you're doing and what you're building in the world. And eventually, your results will show for themselves. You don't have to go around trying to change people's minds about you, or trying to make people think a certain type of way about these other people. Sometimes it can be beneficial to let others know who they're dealing with, or maybe what to expect, but also you have to be able to judge for yourself and discern for yourself and listen to your own intuition. So, when we deal with people who challenge us, who are oppositional to us, who are against us in different ways, it's really like helping us to become stronger in ourselves and more masterful. It's helping us to create self-mastery, because competition, challenge is what, forces us to grow. And growing, changing, shedding skins, like becoming a updated version of ourselves, an upgraded version of ourselves, which is really just collapsing and clearing out the conditioning, the harmful conditioning. That is the work. And so if you're doing the work, and you're doing the work, you don't have to worry, really. And I have to say this for myself as well, because it can be very difficult at times to feel like the world is against you, people are against you, people don't want to support you, that there's bad press about you out there, that there's gossip about you out there, that people have things to say without really knowing you. Like, it's really hard to go against that, especially when you are a spiritual, intuitive person and you understand that those things are happening, and that there's stories out there that you can't control, there's narratives out there that you can't control. But it's not meant to be controlled, it's meant to be proven. Again, like, it's proven through our actions. And so, the best way to look at these relationships is as a challenge to grow. And it's more difficult when we're talking about family, you know, people that you're related to, grew up with, or people who are married with kids, or people who have kids together. Things like that can make these situations more complicated and more difficult to get out of. And definitely, you know, if you are in a situation of abuse, you know, there are ways to get out of it, but you might need some support. It might not just be as easy as, you know, staying away from people or blocking people or whatever, you know, when you have these more complicated situations with the toxic people in your life. So, and I'll put information down below for hotline, domestic abuse hotline. But yeah, I mean, really the main point of the video is that, you know, these people in our lives, these challenging people, these challenging situations, as painful, as difficult, as annoying, as frustrating as they are, like, if you're experiencing this, then there's probably a reason for it. And you know, it doesn't just mean that you're mentally ill. It doesn't just mean that you're crazy. It doesn't just mean that this, that, or the other, what labels people will throw on you. You know, oftentimes it is the victims who are punished. It's the survivors who are punished, and the abusers are not. Like, I have really noticed how, like, in, you know, communities or, like, scenes that I've been a part of, and this is across the board and in different cities, it's oftentimes not the abuser who gets punished. It's oftentimes is the person who speaks out against abuse. And the only way I've seen it go differently is when you have a bunch of victims or survivors who get together and stand together and say, like, this person harmed me, they need to be accountable in XYZ ways. It's the only time I've really seen it go that way, you know, is when the survivors have enough support, either in the form of other survivors or of people who are sympathetic and empathetic to the experience. And on the flip side, I'm not going to say that, you know, there are people out there who accuse other people of causing harm and abuse, and there, you know, there are people who make up those stories for various reasons as well. So it's important to have, you know, to use discernment and to work on your own intuition, your own discernment. But again, you know, take these situations as lessons of, like, where do I need to, like, continue to work on my boundaries. Like, every time that I go out and interact with people, every time that I go into, like, social functions or social events, I have to reflect back on it later and, you know, just see, like, my own behavior and making sure that I'm not falling into the traps that I have in the past, you know, and trying to self-correct things as they come up, versus just looking away, ignoring it, and burying it, and hoping that it will go away when it, you know, it won't. And so, again, like, sometimes the only thing you can do is separate yourself and just keep doing what you're doing. You know, if you are in, like, a life-threatening or abusive situation, get help, you know, find support. I know it's easier said than done. You know, you can also pray for spiritual interventions as well. I do a lot of cleansing and clearing all the time. Like, I just have to all the time. I have a limited amount of social energy to spend, and so I'm trying to spend that more wisely, and, you know, just know, like, which situations and which people are going to see me for me and support me for me, and not worrying about anyone else, you know, not worrying about what other people think, not worrying about whether or not other people like you. And when you come out of, you know, recently, like, abusive or toxic situations, it can take a while to heal and be really ready to reconnect and re-engage with the world and re-engage with people. And so give yourself the time and the space and the patience and the self-love and the self-care and the self-compassion to take whatever steps you need to take for yourself. And you know, it's okay to be selfish at times. It's okay to put yourself first, especially when you're someone who is used to putting other people first. I think it's necessary to give back to yourself and fill your own cup as a part of the healing process. And, you know, all you can really do is, you know, love people from a distance and love people from afar. And it's really difficult, you know. There's been times where I've had really hard times forgiving certain people, or have held resentment for people for years, over things that even happened many years ago. And that was a big part of the beginning of the boundary work and relational healing work, was looking back at the past situations where I did feel taken advantage of and abused, and confronting those people, and in many cases, you know, taking space from a lot of people as well. And again, if you're, you know, if you're in a situation where you're trauma bonded to someone, you know, it can take a while to work that out. It can take a while to be able to see things for what they are beyond the smoke and the mirrors, because the mental, emotional abuse and gaslighting and questioning your own reality and all of these things, it's very destabilizing, and it can really make you lose yourself. You know, I feel like there were definitely certain relationships and connections that I was in at a younger time where I did lose myself very much, slowly over time. You know, it doesn't happen overnight, but it's like the longer you engage in these types of dynamics, these unequal, imbalanced, you know, toxic dynamics, the longer that you engage and the more that you invest into these things, the more that you give your power away into this, you know, illusion. A lot of times it's an illusion that's being created. And so it's important to practice our spiritual discernment and intuition. And, you know, situations like this, like toxic, you know, relational dynamics, like whether it's intimate relationships, friendships, family, coworker, whatever it is, you know, it can take a while to come back and re-ground yourself, re-stabilize yourself, and reboot yourself, you know. And, you know, it's okay, like whatever that you've been through, it's okay. And things take time, you know, and, you know, let people, you know, don't seek revenge, and just know that people eventually get caught up in their own traps and in their own games. And that's just how it is. And you might not ever see that. You might not ever see that happening, but, you know, believe that it does happen, and that people have a way of, you know, laying traps for others and falling into them themselves. So, yeah, I feel like there might have been other things that I wanted to say, or other points that I was trying to make, but I sort of lost my train of thought here. You know, again, like, no one's above causing harm. We're all capable of it. We've all participated in it. It's the world that we live in. The only difference is whether or not you will take accountability for your own and your family generational cycles of trauma and abuse, and stop the cycle and put an end to it, or whether you will continue to you know, perpetuate these things, or allow these things to be perpetuated by ignoring them, sweeping under the rug, blaming other people, and things like that. So I guess I'm going to end it here for now. I might jump on again later if anything comes back to me regarding this topic. You know, like I said, the main point is that the enemies, the bullies, the adversaries, the haters, the people that are against you for whatever reason. They're here to help you find your own strength and to find your own boundaries in your own position, and to be able to be grounded in that and hold that position no matter what anyone else says, no matter what anyone else thinks. And that is what makes you a true warrior out here. So thank you for watching this video and making it all the way to the end. If you like these videos, I also make ASMR Reiki videos. Please subscribe, please like this video, leave a comment below. All of these things help my channel. Just trying to get out the word here, and you know, I'm sharing also my personal experience and what I have learned over the last, you know, several years, and really over the course of a life, of a difficult life that I have lived. And I'm very thankful that I am here, and I am very thankful that I have this platform to share and people who will listen. So until next time, thank you.